When Ikwum opened his restaurant in the heart of Ihiala, it quickly became more than just a place to eat, it became a destination. The once quiet streets of the village were soon alive with activity, as the newly opened restaurant attracted people from every corner of the community. The grand opening was a spectacle. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and an inviting scent of spices, grilled meats, and freshly baked bread wafted through the air, drawing in both locals and visitors. Ekwim's kitchen was a place of modern elegance, a sharp contrast to the traditional huts and thatch roofs of the village. The restaurant's exterior gleamed with a fresh coat of white paint, and large windows showcased the vibrant activity inside. The door was always open, inviting anyone who was hungry to step inside. The decor was sleek and contemporary. Wooden tables were polished to a rich sheen, while comfortable chairs were arranged neatly in rows, with plants and artwork from various cultures adorning the walls. It was a setting that promised something different from the simple, home-cooked meals that villagers were accustomed to. The menu, a glorious array of global flavors, was displayed in colorful chalk lettering on a large board near the entrance. Every dish sounded like a tantalizing adventure, from rich Nigerian jollof rice, spicy suya, and tender goat meat pepper soup to foreign delights like creamy pasta, fragrant Indian curries, and crisp, golden fried chicken. There was something for everyone. Each meal prepared with exquisite attention to detail and premium ingredients. As word spread about the restaurant's promise of delicious meals prepared with the finest ingredients, people from all walks of life began to flock to Ekwim's kitchen. The restaurant quickly became the social hub of Ihiala. By lunchtime, the place was packed with families, friends, and curious visitors from surrounding towns. Young men and women dressed in their finest clothes lined up outside, eager to experience the food and the atmosphere. The door opened and closed continuously, the steady flow of customers creating an almost rhythmic hum of activity. People greeted one another with smiles, exchanging news and stories over the delicious plates that were being served. The buzz of conversation, the clink of cutlery on plates, and the occasional burst of laughter filled the air. The restaurant exuded a sense of vibrancy and excitement, drawing people in from all corners of the village. Inside, the kitchen was alive with activity. The staff, young, enthusiastic, and eager to please, moved quickly and efficiently, delivering plates of steaming food to the tables. The smell of grilled meats, simmering stews, and freshly baked bread wafted through the air, filling the space with an intoxicating aroma. Every dish that emerged from the kitchen seemed to spark joy in the customers who received them. Plates were piled high with golden, crispy fried plantains, tender chunks of grilled chicken, and a variety of side dishes, tender greens, fluffy rice that sparkled with spices, and vibrant salads made with fresh local ingredients. Each bite was a sensory explosion. The combination of spices, herbs, and savory meats was like nothing the villagers had tasted before. The food was delicious, rich in flavor, and unlike anything they had ever experienced. There was always something new to try. International cuisines, mixed with local favorites, prepared with refined techniques that made each meal feel like a luxurious treat. The jollof rice, rich with tomatoes, peppers, and spices, was the pride of the restaurant, its signature dish that always earned rave reviews. The suya, grilled to perfection with a smoky, spicy aroma, was another favorite. People came from miles away just to experience these tantalizing dishes, and soon, the restaurant became a symbol of modernity and luxury in the village. By the evening, the restaurant transformed into a more intimate, sophisticated space. The once bustling room grew quieter, with couples seated at tables, their plates filled with rich stews and glasses of freshly squeezed fruit juices. The dim lighting, soft music, and the occasional clink of glasses created an atmosphere that felt almost magical. The food continued to arrive in waves, delicious and beautifully presented. There was always a sense of anticipation in the air every time the door opened. People hoped to see the food they'd been waiting for: perfectly fried fish, succulent roasted meats, tender stews, and the always popular meat pies that melted in the mouth. It wasn't just the food that made Equim's kitchen special, though it was the experience. People didn't just come for the meals. They came for the lively atmosphere, the energy of the place, the sense of belonging. And then, there were the long lines that formed outside during peak hours. There was a sort of excitement that surrounded the wait, as people chatted with one another, forming friendships over the shared anticipation of what was to come. The longer the line, the more thrilling it felt. Every person who entered the restaurant was greeted with a warm welcome, and they quickly settled into the rhythm of the restaurant, placing their order, sharing laughs, waiting eagerly for the food that would delight their senses. As more and more people flocked in, the restaurant's reputation spread. Soon, it was the talk of the town. From village elders to children, everyone seemed to have visited at least once. It became a place where memories were made, a place for celebrations, for gathering, for escaping the daily routines of life and indulging in something special. The vibrancy of the restaurant was irresistible, drawing in the old, the young, and everyone in between. For many villagers, it became a daily ritual to visit Equim's kitchen. A group of friends would come for lunch, enjoying their favorite meals and catching up on gossip. A family might treat themselves to a dinner on the weekends, savoring the expertly prepared food and sharing stories around the table. And for those with a taste for the finer things, Equim's kitchen was the perfect spot to indulge in a meal of luxury. It was a place where people felt they could momentarily step away from the familiar and into something more exciting, a world of flavors, luxury, and new experiences. The restaurant had become an unavoidable part of life in Ihaila. It was the place to be, a symbol of modernity, success, and an escape from the ordinary. Little did anyone know, however, that beneath the surface of this thriving success, something far more dangerous was brewing. Equim was a tall, confident man with smooth hands and an even smoother tongue. He wore fine clothes, much different from the simple attire of the villagers, and carried an air of mystery about him. He promised them a restaurant that would give them delicious meals, fast and cheap, without the effort of cooking. No more early mornings harvesting, no more tending to the fire for hours. He promised that his food would be nourishing, satisfying, and plentiful. At first, the villagers were skeptical, but the convenience of his offer was too tempting. The older generation hesitated, but the younger ones were quick to embrace the idea. And soon, the restaurant, Equim's kitchen, was open. The first meals were a hit, rich in flavor, hot, and quickly served. Soon, the queues outside the restaurant were growing longer every day. As weeks passed, the villagers began to notice subtle changes. The food, while initially delicious, started to have an odd effect on those who ate it. People who ate at Equim's kitchen would feel a heavy weight in their stomachs, as if they had eaten too much. But that was just the beginning. Something darker began to seep into their bodies and minds. At first, it was small, a sudden wave of exhaustion after a meal. People would eat their food, then feel too tired to finish their day's work. Children, once full of energy and laughter, became quiet, listless, their once playful eyes now dull. They no longer played in the fields, but instead sat idly, staring at the horizon as if lost in thought. They grew pale, their faces drained of the healthy flush they once had. The adults, too, were affected. Their conversations became more tense. Arguments broke out over trivial matters. Once lively gatherings now felt forced. It was as though the village was slowly coming undone. The younger villagers, who had embraced the restaurant the most, were becoming irritable and moody. They spent more time in the restaurant and less time tending their gardens. It was as though something was consuming them from within, leaving them hollow and distant. Mama Gozi, the village matriarch, was one of the few who hadn't eaten at Equim's kitchen. She had long been suspicious of Equim's charming demeanor and the strange way his food seemed to make everyone feel more lethargic. She trusted her instincts, honed by years of experience with the land and the unseen forces that governed it. When the first strange occurrences began, Mama Gozi knew that something was terribly wrong. One evening, after sunset, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She slipped away from her home and walked to the restaurant, her footsteps silent in the cool night air. The once bustling restaurant was eerily quiet tonight. It stood against the dark backdrop of the forest, with lights flickering faintly in the windows. There was an unsettling stillness in the air. As she approached, she noticed something even more disturbing. The scent of something rotting lingered in the air, something foul, thick, and acrid. Peering through the window, she saw Equim standing by the stove, stirring a large pot. His back was turned, but Mama Gozi could feel an overwhelming sense of danger emanating from him. The kitchen was not clean as it should have been. The floors were sticky with old grease, and unwashed dishes piled up in the corners. The walls of the kitchen were stained and dark, a stark contrast to the pristine exterior of the restaurant. But what truly struck Mama Gozi was the strange, unnatural shadows that seemed to move in the corners of the room. The shadows twisted and flickered, as though alive, reaching out like tendrils. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise, her instincts screaming that something unnatural was at work here. As she continued to watch, she saw Equim perform an unsettling ritual. He muttered words under his breath, in a language that Mama Gozi didn't understand, but that sent chills down her spine. Red smoke began to rise from the pot, and the shadows in the room began to dance with a malevolent energy. She stepped back, her breath quickening, realizing with horror that Equim was no ordinary man. He was performing a ritual, summoning something dark and dangerous. The food in his kitchen wasn't just sustenance, it was a vessel for something far darker. The next morning, Mama Gozi gathered the elders of the village. She explained her suspicions about Equim's kitchen. They listened intently, their faces grave. The eldest elder, Chijiok, nodded solemnly, as if he too had suspected something. "We have lived in this land for generations," he said. "We have never before seen such an evil force. But I fear Mama Gozi is right. Equim's food is not what it seems." The elders sent a small group to visit the restaurant to gather evidence. They entered quietly, unnoticed by the staff. As they moved through the kitchen, they noticed that the food itself was being prepared under strange conditions, uncleanliness, unnatural ingredients, and a sense of dread that hung in the air like a dark cloud. In the deepest part of the kitchen, they found something truly disturbing: a hidden altar, covered with strange symbols, bones, and what appeared to be dried blood. They realized that the food wasn't just cursed. It was being used as a gateway, a portal for evil spirits to enter the world. The food served at Equim's kitchen wasn't just a meal. It was a tool, means by which the dark spirits were allowed to enter the bodies of those who ate it. Those who consumed the food were slowly becoming vessels for the spirits, their souls gradually being claimed by the very forces that had been summoned. The elders decided that they could not allow this evil to continue. The village needed to be cleansed, the spirits banished, and Equim stopped before he could claim any more souls. They gathered their most powerful spiritual leaders, including Mama Gozi, to prepare for a cleansing ritual. But Equim wasn't going to let them destroy his powers so easily. When they arrived at the restaurant, the air was thick with the smell of decay, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with energy. Equim, standing at the center of the room, was no longer the confident, charming man they had once seen. His eyes were glowing with an eerie, unnatural light, his skin pale and stretched tight against his bones. His smile was twisted, his voice low and guttural, You think you can stop me? Ekwum sneered. This is my power now. You are all nothing. The spirits are mine to command. The world will fall before me. The elders stood firm, their voices rising in unison as they began the ancient chant of protection. The air around them grew heavy, the shadows in the room writhing and twisting in response. The ground trembled beneath their feet as a dark presence materialized, a shadowy figure, a spirit of corruption, appearing in the center of the room. It was a creature of darkness, with eyes burning like red coals, a massive form that seemed to absorb all light. The battle was fierce, a war of wills between the spirits of light and dark. The village elders held their ground, calling on the strength of their ancestors to banish the evil. The dark spirit roared, its voice like thunder, and the walls of the kitchen cracked as the battle raged. Ekwum, consumed by his pact with the spirits, screamed in agony as the energy he had tapped into turned against him. The forces of darkness began to tear at the walls, the ground, and at his very soul. With one final powerful chant, Mama Gozi and the elders summoned the ancestors to break the bond between Ekwum and the spirits. A flash of brilliant white light filled the room, and for a moment, everything stood still. The shadows disappeared, and the darkness evaporated into the air like smoke. Ekwum collapsed, his body withered and lifeless. The kitchen, once filled with dark energy, was now. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with others.